the College Board provided source, The Dark Side of Resilience. It quotes about leaders and resilience in leaders. While it may be reassuring for teams, organizations, and countries to select leaders on the basis of their resilience, who doesn't want to be protected by a tough and strong leader? Such leaders are not necessarily good for the group. This leadership is taken in practice within the US, where they use this idea of resilient, strong leaders to control public opinion. Good afternoon, my name is Jonah Diaz, and today I will be discussing US leadership influence on public opinion. As we see from this graph, starting from Eisenhower to Trump, it shows while yes, there is a consistent trend of decline in trust within federal government, it shows how easy it is and how constant that the swaying in public opinion as different presidents got selected shows how easily presidents can sway public opinion. This leads to the question, to what extent has US leadership's influence on public opinion impact foreign affairs? To which I answer, the US's manipulative leadership over public opinion negatively impacts foreign affairs due to it planting idea of superiority into US citizens, leads people in the US to believe in competition against foreigners and a foreigner's perspective of not receiving the treatment that its own US citizens have. First, regarding superiority, we see from the graph that most US citizens from 2011 to now say that America is the greatest nation, with stats showing that majority do. But they get this idea from the presidents themselves influencing it, with Barack Obama in 2016 saying that United States of America is the most powerful nation on earth. Donald Trump in 2019, I just want to tell you that America is the greatest place on earth. President Biden's economic plan with the slogan, "The future will be made in America," and George W. Bush saying the peaceful transfer of authority is rare in history yet common in our country, showing how each and every one support this idea of superiority. But not only that, it shows how it's consistent within US presidents, even with different political ideas. Not only that, but we see that in practice with foreign nations, with the Iraq wars, within diplomacy. It says US overconfidence in inadequate diplomacy were to blame for the aggression of Turks. Baluch Bassi reports at least one occasion where he left the negotiation room with frustration, showing how the US takes this ego and overconfidence and superiority to negatively affect foreign affairs. They are directly hurting chances with diplomats. We furthermore see competition within the US is large. We see from the background alone the donkey and the elephant showing the constant political competition of Republicans and Democrats. Not only that, but we see examples of foreign competition with examples like 2016, where Obama said, "We spend more on our military than the next 8 nations combined," which that's exactly what this graph shows, showing that the USA spends $650 billion compared to the next 7 nations, including nations like China, UK, Russia, spending only just $600 billion in 2018. Not only that, but Xi Ying, a professor in a Chinese international school, shows this practice in foreign affairs with the quote, "During the conflict, different forces in the US, including the government, the intelligence community, think tanks, the media, scholars, have coordinated with each other and instigated considerable public opinion pressure on China, urging it to stand on the right side of history, a call tantamount to urging China to turn against Russia," showing how they take this idea of competition to not only support themselves as the United States, but they push it on to foreigners to get more backing as a nation. Not only that, we see the foreigner's perspective, how this will easily go back to foreigners to create hatred within the foreigners towards the US. From Americans' views of recent immigrants of Muslim countries, the most important thing to notice is that a majority of US citizens say that the Muslim immigrants will increase risk of terrorist attacks in the US. And we also see from Muslim Americans themselves that during this rule 2016, it says, "Does Donald Trump make you feel worried?" And most Muslims Americans said yes to it. It shows how the US leaders themselves are a threat to these foreigners and how it changes public opinion. Not only that, but regarding refugees and with refugees, the U.S. targets and gives them a negative view regarding the U.S. so they come to not trust the U.S. with this quote noting the legal definition of refugee recognizes that refugees are individuals who have been forced to migrate, which is distinctly different from the term immigration, which implies choice of migration. However, there are a large number of individuals living in the United States who have not been granted legal status as refugees, but who were persecuted or fear persecution and therefore were forced to migrate, showing how the United States leadership does not care for its foreigners as much. This idea in these relationships the U.S. has towards foreigners will easily lead to foreigners beginning to hate U.S. In conclusion, the persistence of this type of leadership will be consistent throughout the years, since leadership focuses around the idea of staying in power and keeping your ideas in power. And even with U.S. boasting the change of presidents and change in diversity and power, this idea of control over public opinion will remain. And unfortunately, the second point, this will result in threat of foreign conflict as represented. Thank you. Yarma, we're excited. Any questions?
All right, 2 questions. First one, how valid and reliable were the sources that you use? And then how do you know?
So all my sources were mostly reliable, since most of them were either from government sources or peer-reviewed journals. Not only that, a lot of them were direct quotes from presidents. They also showed a wide range of presidents, which showed that I wasn't cherry-picking events.
Okay, and if you had more time, what additional research would you have conducted on this?
I would conduct research about American exceptionalism, which is the idea that America is unique and has something different compared to other countries. I would use that research to then come up with more information about how U.S. leadership goes to influence public opinion.